Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. So children, this is the fourth and the last part of our chapter, which is the climate of India. In the previous lesson, we discussed about the Indian monsoon. The word monsoon has been derived from an Arabic word, if you remember, that is mausim, and which means season. So monsoon is basically a system of seasonal winds that change their direction with the change in season. That means they blow from sea to the land in the summer season and from land towards the sea in the winter season. Similarly, western disturbances are the cause of the light rainfall during winters in the northern part of India, and they are originated in the Mediterranean Sea. Now, before we start the next part, I want you to look at these pictures and tell the relation of these pictures with the climate of a region. You can see that this is a representation of our earth, the globe, depicted with different type of colors. This is an ocean or a sea, a mountain with snow on top. This is also a mountain. So yes, these are some of the factors that influence or affect our climate, also the climate of a region. So in today's lesson, the factors that influence climate of a region or any region on earth will be discussed. Factors affecting the climate. There are several factors that affect and alters the climatic conditions of an area. Some of these are latitude, altitude, distance from the sea, relief or topography, direction of winds, ocean currents, air pressure, etc. There are so many depending on the divisions, the several parts of earth. So in this lesson we are going to talk about the first four factors that affect the climate majorly. The first and foremost is latitude. Latitude is a distance of a place from the equator. Where does the place lie, north or south of the equator? From the equator, in which hemisphere does the place lie? That will be its latitude. These are imaginary lines. Imaginary lines, that means they do not exist in real. They are imaginary lines that divide the earth into several latitudinal regions. You must remember the zones of earth that we discussed in the previous lesson. These are the regions: the equatorial region, this is the Tropic of Cancer, the Tropic of Capricorn, Arctic Circle or the Antarctic Circle. So these are the lines of latitudes. There are several lines. As the latitude increases or moves away from the equator, this is the equator. As it moves away from the equator, temperature starts decreasing. You can see that this region is cold, this is warm, and the equatorial region is hot. Again, in the southern hemisphere, warm region and the cold region. Why does this happen? We have already discussed this, that the sun's rays become slanting as we move away from the equator, but it is direct and vertical over the equatorial region. So this becomes the reason of differential heating and cooling of the lands of different zones of the earth. So the statement is hence proof that the temperature decreases with increasing latitude, and this happens because of the decreasing solar intensity, or the intensity of solar energy decreases as we move away from the equator, which becomes the reason of cold and hot regions. Next is altitude. Altitude also greatly affects the climate of a region. It refers to the height of a location in relation to the sea level. Altitude is the height, the elevation of an object or a place in relation to the level of the sea. This is the sea level. This is where the sea is. And this is the altitude. The height of an object. This is a mountain, the height of a mountain. The elevation, the altitude. It greatly affects the climate. As higher the altitude, lower the temperature. As we move higher, the temperature decreases and the climate is cold. You must have experienced it if you have ever been to mountainous areas, mountainous regions. Why does this happen? This happens because the air is less dense. The air is less dense in higher areas, which means it carries less gases and particles and is able to absorb less heat, which is why there is lower temperature. As you can see in this picture, that air is more dense in the lower regions while it is less dense in the upper or higher regions. So our next factor is distance from the sea, that is how distant a region is from the sea or how close is it to the sea. So the regions lying near to the sea or ocean or a water body and that are the coastal regions, they are less hot as compared to the interior or the inner regions or the regions lying inner part of a region or continent. So these regions are comparatively less hot. Why? Because the air that blows from sea towards the land, that is sea breeze, it is cold and thus it cools down the temperature of that area or that region. That is why they are comparatively less hot and they are believed to have stable climate. That is not too hot, neither too cold, nor too hot. While if we talk about the inner regions, they do not lie near the sea, so they do not experience any such phenomena and they are more hot as compared to the coastal regions. Taking the example of India, this is the coastal region. It experiences less heat while the interior are more hot. This is Chennai, which is located on the coastal region. Kolkata, Mumbai, etc. These are located on the coastline. So they are less hot or they have stable climate. Now the next or another very important factor that affects climate is relief or topography. That consists of mountains, plains, plateaus, and other physical natural features. High mountains have the most influence over the climate of a region as they act as a barrier for cold or hot winds. They do not let these winds pass by. There are two sides of a mountain. One is windward side, which receives the flow of the wind, and the leeward side or the rain shadow region. We'll have a look at the diagram. So this is a mountain. This is the windward side which receives rainfall. There is cool air and which becomes the reason of cloud formation, and there is rainfall. While the leeward side, there is warm air and the region is dry. Now suppose if there is no mountain, then the cool air or cool wind would pass by. and the climate of these two regions would be same and not different, while this is not the case in reality. This region is warm or dry, while this region is cool and has rainfall. So the windward side receives precipitation while the leeward side remains hot and dry. Let's say, for example, the Western Ghats. These are the Western Ghats. Western it's a mountain range. So the wind coming from there is blocked by these mountains. So this region, which is lying on the leeward side of these mountain ranges, receives low rainfall. Similarly, the Himalayan ranges block the cold wave or cold winds. That is why this region does not experience cold climate. So this proves that mountains act as a barrier for cold or hot winds to pass, or it alters the climate of a region. So this is it. We have completed our chapter, that is the climate of India. So in this video we discussed about the factors that influence the climate of a region, such as latitude, altitude, distance from the sea, and relief features. These are some of the factors that we discussed. Other factors include direction of winds, ocean currents, etc. So we discussed about the latitudes, that they are the imaginary lines which divide the earth into several zones, and if higher the altitude, lower the temperature, that the more the height of an object or a thing, lower will be the temperature, and more the distance from the sea, higher the temperature will be there. The temperature will be high, and mountains act as a barrier to the climate. Now your assignment, that is attached separately, and you have to do it in the same manner. Thank you.